I'll talk mainly about when people spend money on other people or donate money to charity, but a lot of the questions in the last session were about the difference between time and money. And we tend to focus on money not because we think money is better than time or something. So I mean, volunteering is a very powerful activity to engage in that has a lot of implications for organizations. We tend to focus on time. I won't talk about this much today, but since it came up a little bit on money instead, because money is really easy and fast for people to do. So if you want your employees to be more pro-social, you can give them a day off and pay their wages for the day, and they can go build houses or something. But many of them, first off, really hate doing that, and they won't engage in the behavior. And in addition, it's very costly for the company. Whereas I'll show you some studies in a little bit where we give people money to donate to charity, which takes them a minute, and everyone's happy to give money away because there's no cost to them, and it has some of the similar effects as like taking an entire day off and volunteering. So when I only talk about money, I'm not saying money is better somehow than time, but we focus on money in part because it's really easy and fast for people to engage in pro-social behavior. So these are my collaborators on this project, 2 graduate students, Laleen and Lara, and Liz Dunn, my collaborator who is at UBC. So I want to talk about just one study. So we've done lots of studies with kind of undergraduates and lab studies and things like that, but I'll mainly talk about field studies because they're more relevant. But I'll show you one of the studies that we did to kind of show basic insights of what happens when people spend money on other people. And then I'll talk about a bunch of field studies where we work with companies to kind of change the way they do charitable giving, change the way they think about CSR, and see how giving can impact the bottom line. So I'll talk about just one study where we look at how spending money on other people impacts individuals. I'll talk about 2 where we look at how it impacts team performance. And then I'll talk about, at the level of the organization, one where we try to empower employees and one where we try to empower customers. So to the data, I have no overall spiel, so I'll just go right into the studies and you can see what you think. So in this first study that we did, we wanted to basically look to see, is it the case that if you spend money on other people instead of spend money on yourself, you get happier? So are there actual benefits to spending on other people rather than buying stuff for yourself? The way that we did this is just one of the studies we did. We had University of British Columbia students on campus, and we basically, Lara went to them in the morning and said, will you be in an experiment? And they said, yes, I'll be in the experiment. And she said, how happy are you? And some other questions. Then she gave them an envelope. And inside the envelope was either $5 or $20 in cash. And then there was a slip of paper that said, either by 5 p.m. today, spend this money on a bill, an expense, or a gift for yourself. Or for other people, the slip of paper said, by 5 p.m. today, spend this money on a gift for someone else or charitable giving. What we're trying to see is if we randomly assign people to do one or the other, who gets happier at the end of the day. And we want to measure the change in happiness. So we call them back that evening at 7 or 8 o'clock and say, how happy are you now? And also we say, what did you spend the money on? So these are just some examples of what they spend the money on. So in the personal condition, they buy earrings and eyeshadow and stuff for themselves. And in the, do you object to eyeshadow? Anyway, and in the pro-social condition, they buy things like toys for siblings, donations to the homeless, and food, drinks for friends. A lot of people here buy Starbucks when they get money, so they either buy a coffee for themselves or a coffee for their friends. Even within that category of buying Starbucks, we'll still get these effects that I'll show you here. So what you can see is, first off, there's no impact of the amount of money, which is actually very important. So if you collapse across these, you can see that at the end of the day, $5 or $20 didn't make you any happier. So it's, even though people think $20 will make them really happy and 5 will make them less happy, it turns out that the amount of money doesn't matter that much. But what matters a lot is whether you spent it pro-socially on somebody else or whether you spent it on yourself. So people who spend the money on somebody else get happier over the course of the day, and people who spend money on themselves don't get any happier. Usually people don't get less happy. They just don't get much of a boost from spending on themselves. It looks like whether you donate to charity or whether you spend, buy something for your friend, when you do those things, there is a measurable impact on your own happiness of engaging in that. I can't. No, I'm just kidding. Of course I can.
I was just trying to understand that $5, I see a greater level of happiness. Is it that with less dollars?
No, so it would have been cute if actually 5 was better than 20. That's not significantly different. And across a lot of studies, we usually find the amount of money doesn't matter much, but how you spend it matters for how happy you are. If you spend it on others, you're happy. If you spend it on yourself, again, you don't get less happy when you buy yourself stuff. It just doesn't do much for you at the end of the day. And it also, if you look at people over time, spending money on yourself or making more money doesn't make you that much happier. But if you use that money pro-socially, that is linked with higher happiness over time. You mean in feet, like on the thing here? I don't know. Maybe like a foot? No, I don't know.
Because you're saying the minus 0.1 is not statistically relevant. Is that what you said?
Yes, that's right. So these are not actually different from 0. And if you average across these, they are different from 0. But we've done like lots of studies with this. So in general, amount of money doesn't matter. And how you spend it matters a lot. So that's kind of just really the quick basic insight. So we have lots of studies that I won't talk about where we just try to show that it does in fact make you happier to do these kinds of things. What we wanted to do with that was to say, well, given that we know that engaging in that behavior has benefits for individuals, what does that mean for groups of people? So what does it mean for how teams work, or what does it mean for how organizations work? Can we use this simple basic insight that there's benefits to engaging in this behavior and see if we can make that work for companies when they think about how they do charitable giving, or when they think about how they engage their employees in pro-social behavior more generally. And I want to spend the most time on that. So I'll talk about 2 studies that we did with teams. I'll show you the context of the teams in a sec, but the basic idea, again, is very simple experiments. We get teams in some context. Some teams we give them money and say, we give a person money and say, spend this on your teammate. Other teams we pick a person, give them money and say, spend this on yourself. And we want to see what happens to those teams over time. So very small amounts of money, very small interventions with teams, but does creating pro-social teams versus personal teams have a real impact over time on how those teams perform? And you're thinking, what are the most important kind of team that you'd want to impact in the world? There's all kinds of teams that do really valuable work. And the first one that we thought of, and I'm sure you have too, is dodgeball teams. This is really increasing the social good to improve the performance of undergrad. I'll have one in a second that's a little bit more relevant to the business world, but we started with dodgeball teams. These are intramural teams at UBC. It's a big league of teams, so we only had some of the teams in the league, and they're pretty small teams of people as well. And again, as I said before, some teams we pick a random person and say, here's some money. By the end of this week, can you spend this money on yourself? Other teams we say pick a person and say, by the end of the week, can you spend this money on a teammate? And that's the only instruction really that we give them. I'll show you just some examples of what people say. So in personal, again, people just buy stuff, like the things they would usually buy. In the pro-social condition, they buy things like pizza for the team, a piñata, and I didn't add the exclamation. The person wrote down piñata in capital letters, exclamation, because they were so excited. But in this condition, what happens is, so you get 20 bucks and you buy stuff for yourself, and it's kind of gone. There's no reason to think that would impact your team. When you do things like this, it's only 20 bucks, but what this person did was they bought a piñata for the team, and they all got together and hung up the piñata and smashed it down like crazy. They had a really good time. 20 bucks, really simple intervention, but already you can see they're being a team instead of being a collection of individuals. So what happens? So if you look in the personal, I should say this is winning percentage. So we have how well were they doing in the league before this, and then how well did they do in the league after this in terms of their winning percentage. These are folks who were in the personal spending condition where we just gave them money to spend on themselves. Before they were winning half their games, and after they're winning about half their games. That's not a significant drop. They're kind of mediocre teams, not doing particularly well or particularly poorly. This is what happens with pro-social spending teams. So they're doing the same before, and afterward, they win a lot more of their games. There's more teams than this in the league, so those don't have to sum. So what these people are doing is they're beating those people a bit and also beating other teams as well who aren't in our sample.
I have an alternative explanation. They threw dodgeballs at the piñata and had better. They got more practice, and therefore they did better. How? Can you explain that? Can you counter that?
I have some video footage. I don't have anything to explain that, but I think that is in fact what's going on here. And in fact, when I have sales teams in a minute, they probably bought dodgeballs and also practiced with them, and it accounts for Okay, so this is just a little bit of thing. We have a couple. I think we have 4 or 5 games where we have a pro-social team playing a personal team. Pro-social, it's a small sample, so I don't want to make too much of it, but pro-social teams go 5-0 against personal teams, and these are just some of the ridiculous names. So we randomly assigned Snoop Dodge to be a pro-social team, and they totally kill H what, and they skunk them, basically. You need to win 3 games to win. We don't have a case where a personal team beats a pro-social team. That's really just kind of reflecting what's happening here. Obviously, it looks like you do better. Okay, dodgeball, not that relevant. I don't know what 5 dudes, 1 cup means either, by the way, but that's okay. Sales teams, a little bit off color in the afternoon. Sales teams, this is a little bit more relevant. So here we have, these are sales teams in Belgium. They're pharmaceutical sales reps, so they go out and make calls on doctors to try to get them to buy. I can't tell you what they were selling and things like that, but they try to get doctors to buy these particular medications. Same thing as before. Some teams we give them €15 to spend on themselves, 1 person. Other teams we give 1 person €15 to spend on the team. Again, they buy things like here they buy stuff for themselves, and here they buy things that are a little bit more either at least 1 teammate, so they take a teammate to lunch, or sometimes they buy things for the entire team. So what happens? So on personal teams, you see from so again, we have pre the intervention and post the intervention. I can't show you the actual numbers because they don't want me to, but you see that's 0.25% increase in sales. So nothing really changes for those teams very much. But for pro-social teams, you see a 5.6% increase in sales. And these are, the numbers that I'm using are fairly large. This is a pretty good chunk of money that you're doing better with. So you give €15 and you get a 5.6% increase in sales. And I can show you, not the actual means, but I can show you the ROI if we do it out. So personal teams, for every €10 that we gave personal teams in the sample, we get 3 back. So it's actually a bad investment to just give your employees €10 because it's not going to get you anything back in terms of increased sales. This is one of these cases also where I had people redo the analyses because they didn't believe it, because when you give pro-social teams €10, you get 52 back. So there's a huge multiplying effect of letting a team have a little bit of money but becoming a team, and then having it multiply as a result. Questions on team stuff? I'll move. Yeah.
So is it increase in happiness or increase in team energy?
We don't know here. So we do have some data with the dodgeball teams that partly what it is actually is showing up. So it turns out if you're a member of a team and you don't really care about your teammates, if you're tired and you don't want to go, you just don't go to the game. And then you're like shorthanded. You don't have as many people actually playing in the game. Teams who are teams, and you know this from your own experiences in the world, if you feel like you're a team, you're literally just much more likely to show up and do the thing you're supposed to do. But sales teams is not an attendance thing. So there's something that happens within teams that makes them perform better, but we don't have the data to say they're doing more calls or they're doing a different pitch or something like that. The company wouldn't give us that data. But I will show you in a sec. We do an intervention in a company where we try to look at how happiness from doing this stuff relates to employee satisfaction as well. So we're trying to see if it is that happiness that you get from doing this that somehow translates into better performance.
They're giving and they're seeing their teammates be happy or happier, and then because the teammates feel like they're being taken care of, that they feel happier, and that's why.
Possible. Yeah. I'll show you in a sec. Even if you donate to charity, your employer allows you to donate to charity, so it's not I gave something to you and now we're teammates, but my employer says, I'm going to let you do a pro-social thing. You like your employer better. So it isn't just face-to-face things. It's something about, my guess is it's a little bit of a misattribution. So you're happy because you do this thing, and you look around to say, why am I happy? And you say, oh, it must be the person who, either the person I gave it to or the organization that allowed me to do this. But it's hard, as you all know, in field studies to get that kind of specific data to see what's really going on. Okay, I'm going to try to go a little bit fast because we're trying to get 3 talks in. So the next thing I want to do is move to the level of the organization after doing individuals and teams. So here what we want to do is think about the way many organizations, for-profit organizations, engage in their charitable giving. This is not true of every organization by any means, but a lot of them do it this way, where a company says, we've got some money that we allocate every year to give to charity, and what we're going to do is pick a charity and give them that money directly. And they might have something where the employees have some voice in where which charity is selected, but often it's, the CEO cares about something, or a couple of employees care a lot about something, and that's how this is picked. So there's very few people involved actually in the charitable giving choice in the organization. And after you do that, you obviously hope for some good stuff to happen. So I mean, of course, you're happy that you've done a pro-social thing, but you do kind of hope that it helps the company somehow. But it's really hard to measure, right? So you're hoping that you get PR. I always say, like, you're hoping that Oprah somehow finds out and comes and says you're awesome on her show. And then as a result of those things, you hope somehow that people will like the brand better. And then as a result of those things, you hope somehow that people will spend more money with you or buy more stuff, something like that. But the metrics are really pretty fuzzy for figuring out what really is the impact of these activities on the bottom line for the business. So what we try to do is change this relationship, basically, by involving people in the process. Because we know that when people do this stuff, they get happy. So we want to say, well, what if the company lets people get involved in this process and they get happy? What kind of metrics could we measure to see if it's really working or not? So I'll just talk about two studies that we've done where we try to empower two different groups of stakeholders in the company in some sense. So in the first one, we try to involve employees in the process. So the way that we do this is, again, company has the same amount of money, $100,000. They want to give it to charity. They've already allocated it. And all they do is, instead of giving it directly to charity, they just give it to their employees. So they just divvy it up. So if we wanted to give a sum of money to charity, instead of me deciding where it goes, we split it up amongst all of us. All of you can decide which charity you want to give it to. And then I can ask each of you, how'd that go for you? And I can see things like, well, do you like the organization better as a result of doing that? And are you a happier person? So I can start to get metrics that I care about and figure out basically the ROI on those charitable giving initiatives. So we do this study with, this is the first study we tried with this company, this Australian company called Karma Currency, which some of you may have heard of, which does exactly what I just described. So when a company wants to give money to charity, rather than give it directly, they give it to Karma Currency. Karma Currency gives vouchers to everyone in the company. So you'd get in your email a $50 voucher from Karma Currency that says your employer wants you to give this money to charity. Click this link, look through all these hundreds of charities, and donate wherever you want. At the end of that, Karma Currency comes in and gives a presentation to the company where they tell you what you all did as a group. And these are like very powerful emotional presentations because you say, wow, I didn't know all of us cared so much about all of these causes. We must be really great. So everyone forgets that it's the company's money, and they look around like, wow, I didn't know Bob cared so much about all these things. He must be great, and things like that. All we do in this process, really, we did this with National Australia Bank, is we see the impact of this pre and post on employees. So we ask them before this thing happened, how happy are you and how much do you like your employer? Then we intervene, and then we ask them after how happy they are and how much they like their employer. And of course, we do an experiment. So we want to see what's the impact of this over and above keeping things the way they were. So we give, in this very simple one, we have a control condition where you don't get anything, and then some employees get a $100 voucher from their company. And again, we're looking for changes in well-being and in employee satisfaction. Here's well-being. So this is literally just how happy are you as a person. You can see in the control condition, nothing changes in their life because they don't get a voucher, so they're just as happy pre and post. But people in the $100 condition are significantly happier a week later as a function of having given this money to charity than they were before the intervention. And then I think this is more important from the corporate standpoint. Employee satisfaction goes up as well. So again, nothing happens in our control condition where you don't get a voucher, but over here we see a significant increase in employee satisfaction as a function of this. And when we do experiments where we vary, whether this is 25 or 50 or 75 or 100, we can benchmark how much charitable giving increases employee satisfaction and figure out what the right point is at which everyone's getting the biggest return on their buck for giving money to charity, but also impacting employees in a positive way. Okay, last, yeah.
The week after? I mean, do you look at 6 months after? And I mean, the sustainability of it, do you factor
So
that?
post-giving is 11 years later. No, it's not really. So this is, I don't know if Australia's been a country for that long. So if you, no offense, if you, this is 1 week. So we do pre, then you get your voucher, and then we wait a week and get post. And I think it's a great question, actually. So you wouldn't expect that having done this once, you'd love the company for the rest of your life. It's one act on one day. And one of the things that we're doing with them now is figuring out what the right timing is to engage people over time. So if you did it every day, you get sick of it really fast, right? You'd be like, God, I have to give this money to charity. It sounds like a great thing, but at some point it feels like boring to keep doing that. So is it every week, every month, once a year, around the holidays? So we're actually doing some experiments now to figure out, like pulsing pro-social behavior into the organization, what's the right time frame to do it? And we don't know yet, but we'll see soon. We're also doing some things where we automatically enroll, this came up earlier, we automatically enroll people, so it comes out of your paycheck every month and you don't see it, versus every month we ask you to re-choose. And the idea there is the more that you re-choose, the bigger an impact that it has on you. So, yeah?
I'm just curious, is it relevant to appreciate the measurement of the method, the range of the metric, 6 to 5?
Yeah, so employee satisfaction, so that's actually a great point too. I usually mention that. Employee satisfaction is very hard to move. So this is small by some measure, so it moves 0.4 on this scale. But for the company, well, the best evidence that they're excited about that change is they did lots more experiments with us. So they've done things, I can't show you this data, but we can compare this to, for example, giving you a $100 bonus. Does nothing in some sense. I mean, it can shift things a little bit, but these things actually beat other sorts of initiatives that companies often do to try to increase employee satisfaction. So it looks like the only way to get changes that kind of are reliable, these work better than the other sorts of stuff that companies do. But yeah, it would be great if it went from like 0 to 10 as a result of this. So we're looking kind of within a constrained range.
Is that the other end of the range?
This is, I think, probably 1 to 7, I think. So these are employees that kind of like their employer. These are also employees that they really want to retain. So they're not like expendable employees, they're knowledge workers. So they're excited, that they can start to move the needle a little bit. Yeah.
Moving next, is it significant that the employees are a lot less happy than they are? Their well-being looks like much lower than their satisfaction with their job.
This is probably on a 5-point scale, and this is probably on a 7-point scale. So the means aren't directly comparable. Although you know what, I don't know that for sure, and I should. Yeah. So I don't think this indicates that they like the company more than they like their lives. Although that would be pretty amazing. I don't know if that's sad or good. I don't know what my life is terrible, but I love my, okay, so last study to be sensitive to time. Again, in the last study we said rather than give the money directly to the charity, you give it to your employees and let them give and see what happens. Here we say, well, you've got another key stakeholder, which is your customers. Why not give them the money, split it up among all your customers, and let them donate to charity? And then see what happens in terms of things that you care a lot about, like do they come back and spend more money with you over time, and do they like your company better over time as well. So when you do it at an individual level rather than kind of give $100,000, I can see if I give one customer money to give to charity and another one I don't give any money, and then I follow them for 6 months, I can see, do I get more money back from this person that I allowed to engage in pro-social behavior than I get from the person that I didn't allow to do that. And we do this study with a company, again, that you might be familiar with, DonorsChoose.org, which is a company where public school teachers in the United States, usually in low-income schools, can post projects online. So they can say, I want to teach Mark Twain and my school can't afford books, and any of us can go on and fund that project. Related to some of Adam's stuff, one of the things that they do very well at DonorsChoose is they create a link between you and the classroom. So after you fund the classroom, the teacher sends you a thank you note right away, and then after they use the thing you bought, all the students send you thank you notes as well. And if you buy them art stuff, they'll send you like paintings that they made and things like that. So they're really trying to get this link between you and the giver, you and the receiver. So basically what we do with DonorsChoose is we work with a large retailer that I can't tell you who that is either for some reason, and they send some of their customers vouchers for DonorsChoose. Other customers, they don't send vouchers to DonorsChoose, and then we track their spending over time as a function of whether they got a voucher or not. And what we see is for people, I'll just click both of these up. What we see is that people who redeem, so we end up with 3 groups of people actually, right? So there's a control group that gets nothing. Then among the people who got a voucher, some of them redeem the voucher and some of them choose not to redeem the voucher. So we can look at those 3 groups of people separately. And what you see is that people who redeem the voucher spend 16% more over the ensuing 6 months compared to the control condition. And it's a $50 voucher, so this is a win, right? So they're spending, given the ticket prices at this retailer, they're spending actually more than $50 as a result of getting this voucher. I think one interesting thing is that even non-redeemers, so these are people who got the thing, looked at it, or maybe even just threw it straight away, they still spend more. So one idea, I think this is an overclaim a little bit, but if you think about people who get this voucher and they say, oh, this retailer is doing something nice, throw it away, it might click with them a little bit that, oh, that's a better retailer than I thought, so I'll spend more money. But folks who both see that and redeem, go through the process, spend even more than that. This is a self-selection issue because these people choose to do that. So I can't say causally that's what's going on, but that is at least what it suggests. That's customer spending. This is customer satisfaction. So these things all go up by quite a bit. The most interesting one is huge change in, does this company care about the community or not? In the absence of anything, you say, I have no idea, 21%. But if they do things like this, you say they really care about the community. OK, so I'll just summarize and then end. But again, we started with how giving impacts individuals. Then we looked at how giving can change the way teams works. And then in those last two studies, we wanted to say how giving can change how organizations usually do things. If you involve key stakeholders, you can actually measure the ROI on these activities. And then you can make the business case that you should keep doing it going forward. So that's my pitch for collaboration is, excuse me, we're always looking for companies that want to, excuse my voice, that want to experiment with us, basically. So figuring out ways to be creative with charitable giving and then also measure the impact on the business. That's it. Thanks. Yeah.
You talked about the benefit in terms of the kind of sense of well-being of the individual and for, in this case, a company. Do you have any data about the benefit to the, in this case, to the charities or the nonprofits involved? Specifically, what I'm wondering about is if I'm an employee at a company and the company says, here, you can give away $100, do I give less than as an individual, as well as the net benefit to the charitable world more or less, given that kind of dynamic, if I'm giving away somebody else's money?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we're just now, so one real concern that David's highlighting is you get substitution. So the company was going to give $100,000, and people themselves were going to give some of their own money. Now, if the company divides it up, I just give that money instead of what I was going to give, and all the charities end up making much less money. And it's a very real concern, I think. We're doing a study now with Donors Choose and a different retailer where in the study that I showed you, we can only track how much they spend at the retailer over time, but now we can track how much they spend at Donors Choose over time as well. So we can start to see a little, it doesn't quite answer, but we can start to see a little bit, is there substitution or not? So do I increase spending at both, or do I start to substitute, or things like that? But we don't know whether it decreases your overall charitable spending as a function of doing this, because we don't have access to people's charitable giving over time. I can say anecdotally that what we usually see, at least with the Donors Choose data, is that there are people who've never given to Donors Choose before, and they end up giving more. So that's an organization that's so effective at creating links that it isn't, you don't usually see people who give once and then drop out forever. They have high repeat business. Now, it doesn't mean that people aren't still taking it from, they used to give to the Red Cross, now they give to Donors Choose, but it does at least suggest that it isn't I'm done with that forever and now I can never give to charity again. But it's a super important question, and we don't have great data on it. I've actually worked with the people who did the Product Red campaign, which is Bono and the red stuff at Gap and things like that. And it's the same issue there, right, where I would have given $100 to charity this year. Instead, I buy a $100 product, and $10 goes to charity, but I feel like I gave $100 to charity and I'm done for the year. And it's been hard to get retailers to share their data to see what's happening in terms of substitution there as well.
It'd be interesting to push that even a bit further to see if there's any further benefit in terms of additional involvement as a volunteer or in some engagement. If I'm, does that carry on? Does it get me more deeply engaged, and then I get more time, or do I perceive a trade-off there? And so, yeah.
Do I have time for more questions? Oh, okay. Yeah.
So
Similarly, if instead of you giving them money, they're using their own money, do the happiness numbers then stay the same? Because maybe they were like planning on using that money for themselves, and then you ask them to give them money.
Yeah, so we can look at that a little bit. I mentioned just briefly, when we get people to enroll in monthly giving, what we're trying to do is prime the pump by giving them free money. So here's $50 from the company, enjoy spending it. And then we're running a study right now with Karma Currency where right after you donate to the charity with the $50 the company gave you, we say the link automatically takes you to your workplace giving page where you can adjust your monthly giving, basically. So it's like, did you know you're giving $0? And you can change it right there. So we are trying to kind of leverage people into giving their own money if they weren't before. But it's hard to, the comparison of giving your own money versus giving kind of windfall money is hard to do because as soon as you have a condition where you say, we're only going to have people give their own money, nobody gives money. So you end up comparing, you know, if you give people $50 to give away, lots of them give it away. If you tell people, will you give money away, none of them give it away. And then you're comparing these groups' happiness, and it's not the right comparison. So it turns out to be hard just methodologically, even though at a conceptual level it's super important to know what the kind of impact is of those two things. One more. Yes?
When you're sharing this information broadly, we've done it both with employees and with customers. Have you gotten pushback on the groups that are receiving dollars? So, you know, when someone that's working in philanthropy makes choices, I use different filters than, say, employees or customers. So when they see Planned Parenthood, Boy Scouts, just really divisive groups, do you find that employees then are not feeling happy about giving because someone else is basically canceling out their donation or whatnot?
Yeah, so this is actually a really important question. So there's two important things there. One is, in general, the extent to which you need to feel you have choice or not in where you give the money. So if the company says, hey, we were going to give this money, let's say to a neutral one like the Red Cross, right, and instead we're going to give it to you and you can give it to the Red Cross. It's like, well, why? Why didn't you just give it to the Red Cross, right? So what we do is we say, we're going to give you money and you can choose where to give it. And then in most of the studies, we give people lots of options. So if you like Planned Parenthood or you like the NRA or you like whatever group, that's who you can give to try to maximize that. But with Donor Choose, for example, it's education space, public schools. But even there, you can search. So you can say my state, my town, whatever you want to do. Or I know that this city is struggling, so I want to give there. So it was a huge spike for New Orleans schools, for example, when that happened as well. So I think choice is super important. I think we don't know the right number of choices for people to have. I'm sure if you felt like these were not causes that you cared about, it would be problematic. And we do always try to give people enough choice that they feel that they did it. They still forget that it's not their money. So as soon as they give, they say, wow, I'm awesome. I just gave money to charity. But that's a good thing. I mean, weirdly enough, that's a good thing that they feel that way because they're starting to be invested in being a giver. Great, thanks so much.